Well, welcome back to another episode of the Cruise Conversations podcast. I'm Frank.
And I'm Michael.
Today's episode is episode number 106, and we're doing our Quantum of the Seas Alaska preview. Let's jump into it.
Well, Frank, the trip is finally almost here. You know, we booked this cruise last year, so it's been well over a year ago. We started talking about Alaska. Didn't really talk about it much on the podcast because, like we said, this is our first time sailing it. It's not like we've sailed it in the past and kind of have even like done episodes on Alaska yet.
Yeah.
So these have kind of really been our first. So, I mean, yeah, like I said, we're counting down the days. We're doing our last minute packing, buying some last minute things.
Yeah. Amazon's been pretty busy at our house. I feel like Amazon's been coming like 2 or 3 times a day.
Yeah.
Just random shorts or hats and stuff. So getting ready. Final swing.
Yeah, well, so before we jump into kind of previewing the cruise, you know, we've kind of did this for some of our past cruises, a little this or that. So we're going to kind of go through some things. I wrote down some Seattle-specific stuff, some Quantum of the Seas-specific stuff, and some Alaska-specific stuff that we're going to go through here now. But Frank, so the first one, I forget, is this your first time in Seattle? You've been there for...
I've been there for work, but
Okay.
never like downtown Seattle. So honestly, I'm coming in blind.
Okay. So the first this or that I have is, are you more interested in going to see the Pike's Place Market out on the waterfront or visiting the original Starbucks?
I'm going to have to go with Pike's Place Market. I think that one looks pretty sweet. The OG Starbucks, obviously, we'll go and hit it, but I feel like I'd rather see kind of experience more shops, more restaurants than just Starbucks, in my opinion.
You know, the funny thing here with the Starbucks is I've walked by the original one last time I was there and obviously line out the door. You literally walk around the corner and go like a block up and there's another Starbucks. Nobody in there because the line, everybody's going to the OG one. But like I said, we walked by it, kind of saw it. We're like, all right, let's go get coffee at another one because I
Yeah.
mean, the coffee's going to be the same.
Same coffee, just a different vibe, I guess, probably, right?
Yeah.
All right, Michael, when you're in Seattle, there's kind of 2 big things. I know I'm hitting both of those. I'll tell you about that in a second. But the Space Needle or Chihuly Garden and Glass. Which one of these would you choose if you had to pick one of them?
Okay, so last time I was there, I did the Space Needle. So I think this time I'd be doing the Garden and Glass Museum. I think my family's going to probably be going to both of them. I don't know if I'm actually going to do either one of them, but if I had to choose one, it would be the Chihuly Garden and Glass. All right, Frank, so on Quantum of the Seas, you know, there's a bunch of features on this ship that we've yet to experience on a ship before that are specific to the Quantum class. Are you more interested in checking out the North Star or Ripcord by iFly?
Ooh, this is a tough one. My first instinct goes to the North Star. You know, the iFly looks pretty tough, so I might try it. It looks challenging. The North Star is kind of just like a really beautiful experience. So I'm going to go maybe North Star on this one.
I agree with you.
All right, Michael, there's 2 really cool new, I guess, neighborhoods, I would call it, on Quantum of the Seas and on the Quantum class. You've got the Seaplex and you've got the Royal Esplanade. Which one would you have to pick if you could only pick one?
All right, Frank, that's a tough one. You know, I've been real interested in both of these. The Royal Esplanade obviously has the pub there. I think the Schooner Bar is kind of off of it.
Now, what would you say quickly? I know this is supposed to be a quick segment, but between the Promenade and the Esplanade, what would you say is the biggest difference?
Okay, to me, a lot of people make the Promenade sound like it feels like a floating mall on the inside, but I feel like this one looks more mallish overall.
Okay.
I was watching a walkthrough of it, and obviously, I mean, you have all the shops next to each other, but it seems more narrow too. But this area seems super cool. But you know, I think you'll find me there in the evenings, but I think on some of the sea days, you're going to find me in the Seaplex doing some of the bumper cars and maybe foosball and some of the stuff out there. So I think I'm pretty 50-50 here.
You know, Michael, I'm probably going to go Royal Esplanade for me personally. I think I'll use the Seaplex, but I know that I'll spend a lot of time, like you said, in the Royal Esplanade.
All right, so the next one we have here on Quantum of the Seas, switching to food, we have La Patisserie, which is a little French kind of cafe area on the ship, or the Splash Away Cafe, which is kind of the old noodle shop, which I think has some free food options on it and some upcharge options that are kind of Asian-y. What are you thinking here?
I'm definitely going to have to go Splash Away Cafe for me personally. Love the vibe. I've already watched the video, like you said, and kind of seen this space. I like that it still has some of the old noodle shop like decor.
Yeah.
And then obviously you can get some Asian food, like some quick bites there too. So I'm looking forward to experiencing that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that one. I feel like it's still super hard though to find the actual menu online.
Yeah, they don't really advertise the menu. So I guess it's one of those things where we'll have to get on board and see what they're serving that day. All right, Michael. So now let's talk entertainment, right? You've got the Harp and Horn Pub. I find it funny that Royal changes the name on every ship, but it's the same pub.
Yeah.
We got the pub, the schooner bar, or the music hall. Which one are you thinking you're gonna spend more time on your cruise?
All right, so for me here, Frank, the one I want to try and spend more time on this sailing is the music hall.
Yeah.
This is something I had on Wonder of the Seas when I sailed it, but I don't think I ever really went in it. Now, the pub and schooner bar I've spent plenty of time on all the my other sailings, and I'm sure this time too I'll probably end up spending more time in those as well. But like I said, I want to try and be in the music hall a little bit more.
Yeah, Michael, you're right. The music hall is a really cool venue. Again, for those that haven't sailed Royal, basically just it is a venue where you have seats and a bar and they play music. But a lot of times they'll use this for game shows and stuff as well. I personally, that's the main reason why I've been to the music hall is for like the Battle of the Sexes or just different game shows that they do.
Okay.
Kind of similar to like when we were on Freedom last year, how they use the Star Lounge for that.
Yeah.
So they use the music hall for that same purpose as well. But to your point, in the evenings, the music hall probably won't be the spot. It'll probably be the pub or the schooner bar. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we get some really great musicians, because that also makes the trip a lot more fun when you have great people playing music in the pub. All right, Michael, let's talk about food in Alaska. So obviously the two main, most of the time you're getting fresh fish. So the two things we wanted to compare here is fresh salmon, or are you going for that crab leg, the fresh crab legs up there in Alaska?
All right, so for me personally, and we'll kind of get into what we're going to be doing at some of these spots, I think I have a spot for both down so far. But I think overall, I'm more excited for the fresh salmon than the crab legs. I feel like I'm just more of a salmon person overall than crab.
Yeah, I think crab is most people probably think it's like a fishier flavor. Salmon, I mean, tastes amazing, especially when you grill it or bake it. You know, it doesn't have as much of a fishy flavor. But I'll go for both. So when in Rome, you got to do salmon and crab in Alaska.
All right, Frank, now moving on to kind of the excursions and things to do during the day here in Alaska. Are you excited to go spend time out on the water or go explore the Tongass rainforest?
Personally, I love spending time on the water, so I'll take time on the water. I know that we've got some of that planned. We'll talk about it in a few minutes. But that's probably what I'll go, Michael. What about you? Which one of those would you choose?
So right now, I think planned, I have more the rainforest. I'm still trying to figure out one of my port days that may be some time on the water.
All right, so now let's talk about our itinerary, right? So we have a sea day. We're going to hit Ketchikan. We're going to hit Sitka, Juneau, and then we're going to hit the Endicott Arm and Dawes Glacier. You know, Michael, when we were looking at some itineraries for Alaska, I was the one that pushed us towards Sitka, and I did look this up again. You know, a lot of people say Skagway is more industrial, more touristy, but I will say I want to go back to Alaska now after hearing Jeremy's recent episode about how he did that train excursion. So for those that are going to Skagway, we're not going to talk about that today because our itinerary doesn't really go there, but that is another reason why we're going to probably want to go back to Alaska in the future. So we are going to Sitka. It's more of a local town. We'll talk about what we're choosing to do there. But yeah, when we looked at cruises, we looked at Princess, looked at Royal. I think we even looked at Carnival. Or we looked at all the lines. And, you know, when we looked at basically making that decision, we looked at Seattle versus Vancouver. Ultimately, we chose Seattle because we had a lot of people flying in from the East Coast, and it was just a little bit easier to get to. Flights looked a little bit cheaper. And when we looked at the ship, we both were kind of intrigued a little bit with the Quantum class, right? It's a larger cruise ship. It's a nice, I mean, people rave about the ship, and we'll talk about some of the features about the Quantum class that we're excited to experience. But in general, you know, the layout is really nice, and I think the itinerary is perfect. We get some really long days, and that's another thing. When Jeremy was on, he mentioned that some of his days were a little bit shorter. He did get to see the Glacier Bay, and so that was a benefit. But then the downside to that was that he had less time in the ports. So that's just something to consider. And I think when we did our spreadsheet, we picked the itinerary based on when we had the longest days in Alaska. And I think for the most part, every single day, we're there 9 to 5, and I think Juneau we're there 1:30 to 8 p.m.
Yeah.
So we get some really good time off the ship, which is, I mean, why we're going on this cruise is to see Alaska.
Yeah, and I think too, Frank, I think this one too was just a good price too for the class of ship. Like I said, neither one of us have been on this class of ship, and it also just has, like you said, a lot to do on it. So I know, like, from my side of things, I have a lot of my family coming. I think there's like 10 of us going, and it's a wide range of, like, my sister being the youngest, who will be turning 25 in July, to both my grandmas, who are going to be the oldest of the group. So I know for me, and kind of planning what we're going to be doing in a lot of these ports. I'm doing more of like a build your own adventure type day, you know, and I kind of just had to take the charge and be like, all right, these are kind of the things I'm interested in kind of going to be doing and seeing. Anyone who wants to tag along can. And then I've kind of recommended some other things that they could also do at the ports.
Yeah, Michael, we're doing a little bit more of like a pre-planned excursion. Most of them are either through Viator or the cruise line. So we'll talk about that later. But hopefully we get to meet up for, you know, a drink at a bar or maybe some crab legs when we get done with our checklist of things we want to do in each port. Now, before we get to the cruise, I want to talk about Seattle, right? So I'm flying in Friday night. The cruise leaves Monday. And for those that are looking for things to do, you said you've been to Seattle, right? I've not ever been into the downtown. So we were doing some research and there's a lot of things to do. And we actually stumbled across City Pass.
Yeah.
So for those that are traveling to Seattle for the first time, I think it was $129 a person, but it includes a lot. So this is kind of like all the typical excursions that you would do. Again, you probably want to make sure you have enough time to do all these so you're not squeezing it in too much. Like you wouldn't be able to do it all in one day. You would need 2 full days really. But we're doing like 2 visits to the Space Needle both in the morning and at night, and they're open like till 11:30 p.m. The aquarium, the gardens, there's a harbor boat tour that's an hour long, and the zoo. So all of that was $129 a person.
Nice.
I feel like it's a good value, and then it's in the app so you can easily see what times you're doing each one. So for those that are going to Seattle early, this might be something that you want to check out.
Yeah, so for me in Seattle, Frank, like I said, I think some of my family may be going to doing the Space Needle and the Glass Gardens and all that. I'm going to kind of take it a little easier that day. I'm going to go see Pike's Place Market. I'm going to go to the Starbucks Reserve this time. I tried to go last time, but there were some protests going on with the workers were on strike or something. So I didn't get to experience that yet. The Reserve looks super cool, and there's only so many of them in the world. So I'm going to go spend some time there. Probably go do a ferry over to Bainbridge Island, I think my mom was looking at, and probably go grab lunch over on that side, and then probably hit up a speakeasy in the evening.
Nice. Sounds like an awesome day in Seattle. All right, so let's go through at a high level our plan for each of the stops, right? So Ketchikan, we're there from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Michael, what's your plan for our first stop in Alaska?
So Ketchikan, all right, this is probably my second most baked out day so far. There's a chance that I rent a car here and go check out some places like Settlers Cove and the Hearing Cove and try and go see some wildlife. I know one of the spots you can kind of maybe see some bears out in the distance. Obviously getting to go explore Creek Street, see the salmon ladder. I think we may be there a little too early to actually see the salmon running, but we'll see. And then I know what you're going to be talking about. For your excursion, they're connected to a restaurant called the Alaska Fish House. Probably going to go have lunch there and then go grab drinks at a distillery called Uncharted Alaska. And this is actually in an old fire station.
Wow, that seems like a super packed day. That sounds awesome. Yeah, so we're doing salmon fishing. We found this one through a third party. We looked at a lot of excursions. Honestly, Ketchikan was a tough one. They had a lot of things on the cruise line site, but trying to map out, like we knew we wanted to do a fishing day. I don't really understand why my wife was the one that was pushing this harder than me.
I figured you pushed this on
No,
her.
I didn't push the salmon fishing one that hard. She was the one that wanted to do salmon fishing. So you get up, you get on the boat, you obviously throw the lines out there. If you catch something, you get to actually pay to ship it home. So that's kind of a cool feature that, you know, we could get home and actually eat the fish that we caught. Yeah. Hopefully it's actually ours, but that is a cool thing. So we're going to do that. And then, maybe we'll meet up with you at the distillery because that seems like a really cool spot.
All right, Frank, our second stop now is Sitka. Like you said, here also we're there from 8 to 5. What do you have planned for your day in Sitka?
Yeah, so this is another tour I found on Viator. It's a whale watching and wildlife boat tour. It was highly rated. Again, I can put the links in the description, but it was like a 4.8 or 5.0 on Viator with hundreds of reviews. And it just seems like a cool excursion to get out there on the water, see some whales. This is really our whale watching day, and just see maybe some bald eagles, just different animals. And the guide kind of points stuff out for you, and this is the one that you're going to probably want your binoculars for.
I was about to say, yeah.
Yeah, we will make sure we have those in the backpack, and another day on the water, 2 days on the water in a row. I think that's pretty much, it's exactly what we wanted to do, right? And then we'll talk about what we're doing in Juneau, but it will be nice to really get out there and see some whales and stuff out in the water.
Yeah, and I've heard that Sitka is actually kind of the more underrated places for whale watching. Some people do put it above Juneau. Obviously, a lot of people, when they think of Juneau, they think of the whale watching and all that. So, yeah, I may also be going that route here in Sitka. I've been also looking at excursions of trying to get out on the water. I was also kind of looking at Ketchikan too, but like I said, I've read and heard that Sitka's better for this, and probably, like you said, going to see some wildlife out there on the water in Sitka.
Sitka looks like a really cool town. They've got some like cool Russian history there too, and totem poles and Raptor Center.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really cool things to do. It's just not as developed as like Juneau or Ketchikan or Skagway, for example. So that's, again, one of the reasons why I booked this, but it has its downsides that it doesn't have the awesome train. But I think we're going to have a really good day. Like to your point, if we see some awesome whales and wildlife, to me, that is why I want to go to Alaska. So
Yeah.
really looking forward to that. Now, day 3 is a longer day because we wake up and we're actually on the ship, sailing through the Endicott Arm and Dawes Glacier. So that's going to be insane. I'm already planning. I'm going to grab coffee, probably even do maybe some breakfast in the room, get ourselves situated, get out on the deck somewhere, even on our balcony, and watch some of the glaciers as they go by. But Michael, we're going to be in Juneau from 1:30 to 8 p.m.
Yeah.
It's a pretty nice day here in Juneau. What are you planning to do here?
Yeah, so this day I definitely have the most baked out of all my days so far. So I've already rented a car, holds 8 people, and we're going to be going to the Mendenhall Glacier Visitor Center. So we're going to start there, probably go walk the Nugget Falls hike, which...
Did you say a car that holds 8 people?
Yeah.
What is this, like a bus?
I mean, I rented a pretty good-sized SUV.
Okay.
So, like I said, I think there's definitely 6 of us going, but a couple others may tag along. But we're going to, like I said, we're going to start at the Nugget Falls hike, which kind of goes along the water, and you can kind of see the glacier off in the distance, Mendenhall Glacier. I've heard it's kind of continuing to recede each year, so we'll see what it's looking like. I've seen some pictures of people down there on this hike, and it looks beautiful. And then there's another hike. I think it's called the Trail of Times, kind of off the visitor center that kind of goes up into the forest that I think we're going to try and hit up too. So we're going to kind of do that and then kind of come back to town. There's another distillery here. This is actually the first one I had found, Almaga Distillery. They distill gin and whiskey, so they have a bunch of just different gin and whiskey cocktails you can get here, so probably going to do that. And then, obviously, one of the biggest, most famous restaurants here in Juneau is the Tracy's King Crab Shack.
Ooh.
And this one, they have like their main location kind of right in the port area, but there's another one in town too. It's called their Shack Number 2, and I've heard this is where the locals go and they don't want to wait in lines at the other one.
Okay.
But I've already looked up, and for Friday nights, the Friday we're actually there, they do music out there at this location. So probably going to go have some crab legs, listen to some music, and that'll probably wrap up my day there. I think some of my family may go up to the tramway, up the mountain. Depending on time, I may do that as well.
Dude, that seems awesome. Yeah, I'll definitely be meeting up with you for some crab legs and live music at Tracy's. But yeah, we're actually booked through Royal. So we originally weren't booked through Royal. Then we were like, we weren't happy with the amount of time we got on the glacier. So we actually canceled our Viator booking and we rebooked through Royal, which is nice. There's part of it that's like nice to feel like you have the, not white glove, because sometimes it's not like as nice maybe as booking through Viator, but like it's easy, you get in your room and they already tell you here's where you go and all that stuff. So we're booked through Royal. We're doing a helicopter glacier trek. This one is about a 2-hour hike on the glacier. So you obviously helicopter over there and you have 2 hours to hike around. Looks like a pretty long excursion now, maybe about 4.5 hours. So we're thinking we get off and we do want to try to do some other hike here. So we're looking at that tramway that you were talking about. It takes you about 1,800 feet high, and there's some trails and hikes around there, and I'll probably throw the drone up a little bit around the cruise ship and get some of Juneau from above. So that's what we're thinking, and either finish the day with some seafood in town after that, or maybe we'll do that first and then come back to the tramway after. So again, keeping it flexible, but those are some of the things that we are planning on doing in Juneau.
All right, Frank. So our last stop is Victoria, Canada. You got to hit up that international stop on these sailings. I think we both have the same idea here. We're here from like 5 to 10, and I think we're planning on doing dinner here. My aunt was talking. It's actually my Nana's birthday this night of the cruise, and she was kind of just like, if there's any night like I kind of want us all to be at dinner together, it would be for Nana's birthday. So I've been looking at some just different pubs and restaurants in town here that we may try and go hit up for dinner that night.
Yeah, same thing. I mean, we're there for, like you said, 5 to 10 p.m. So really is dinner time. Some people are booking excursions here.
I saw that on the Facebook group.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know if I want to do an excursion like the last day, but it'll probably be our day where we walk around, explore, and grab dinner. We've already started looking at some restaurants, and honestly, the restaurants are really good. Everything was like above like a 4.4, and there's some 5-star restaurants. So I don't know how fancy we'll go, but like even some really good like seafood places.
Yeah.
We're early on, so we don't know if we want to book that much seafood. May get sick of seafood after this point. This will be like day 10 of the trip.
Yeah.
So we're like, let's just see about day 7, 8, how we're feeling, and then we'll either book something or just kind of have more of a plan for Victoria. So, Michael, let's talk about the ship real quick. So, a couple things I'm really excited about, and I'll bring this to the vlogs and obviously the recap. Speaking of the recap, we're planning on actually recording, hopefully on that last day we're on the ship. So, probably the day that we hit Victoria, we can wake up and record a little podcast for you guys to recap the trip. And then maybe we'll add on the Victoria part after. So, that's a holistic episode. But Michael, some things that I'm really looking forward to on the ship is, first of all, the pool deck and the Windjammer. A lot of people say that the Windjammer on this class of ship is one of the best Windjammers in the fleet. So usually I'm not a big like buffet person, but I'm not going to shy away. Those fried potatoes that they have that are like the McDonald's ones. I love them. They're like the triangles.
Yeah.
Super good. I'm going to make sure I get those for breakfast. But ultimately, I'm not going to shy away from the Windjammer. The other main reason when we're talking about Quantum of the Seas that I was excited about going on this class of ship for Alaska is because the pool deck is configured really nicely. And what I really like about it is you've got the outdoor pool with some hot tubs, and then you have an indoor pool. Again, that's not adults only. It's like for anyone. And there's a couple hot tubs in there, and that looks really, really cool as well. And then obviously you have the solarium, and people, again, really say the solarium on this class of ship is nice. So I'm excited, again, just to be out on the pool deck and experience some of the typical Royal Caribbean things. I think it'll be cool.
Now, is the solarium on this ship temperature controlled, Frank?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. I know I saw I don't think I realized there was a solarium. Then I was watching someone's walkthrough the other day and saw it. I was like, oh, that's a pretty decent size solarium too.
Especially because that's not an Oasis class ship size, but it feels almost like that.
It looks like that style too.
Yeah, that style.
All right, Frank, one thing I'm excited for on this ship is the 270 venue. This one, it kind of feels similar to kind of like the Aquadome concept, right, on Icon of the Seas. And this one, I know we have one show throughout our sailing on it. I forget what it's called. It's some saltwater, or it looks like a good show. Obviously, a lot of technology in this venue. There's also a little cafe attached to it, too, that'll be open during the day. So that may be a little spot where if you don't want to go hit up the Windjammer, you can go grab lunch or maybe breakfast there as well. But yeah, I'm super excited for this venue on the ship. It also kind of feels like when I was on the MSC Seashore, the Cabaret Rouge kind of area where they would do some shows in the evening. And it kind of, on that ship, it became the club at night, but it was kind of like a back of the ship little venue that stretches the whole back.
Yeah, and I love like the floor to ceiling windows. And again, that's really why it's called 270, because you have, they say 270, but I don't know if it's exactly 270 degree views, but it is supposed to be an area that shows off the views of the ocean. And again, that's why I think it kind of, like you said, feels similar to the Aquadome, because it's like the views plus the cafe and kind of like an area where you can lounge during the day, but then also they use that space for some really cool shows. So I'm excited about that. Obviously, the other thing I'm really looking forward to that's not found on the ships that we talked about earlier on other Royal Caribbean ships is the iFly or the North Star. Again, I'm not exactly sure if I'm going to do the iFly. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. Maybe if I have a couple extra drinks, feeling bold out there, I'll hop on that. But the North Star for sure is just super cool. And like you said, you don't get that on any other cruise ship. So might as well do it when you're in Alaska.
Frank, I'm pretty sure the iFly is probably something like the Flow Rider, where when we sign the waivers, it says we've not had any drinks or anything. Yeah. But I know anytime I've done the Flow Rider, definitely have a couple cocktails with me before I get on it.
Even me doing the Flow Rider like 100 times at this point, like I still feel like I need a beer or something to like calm, because I don't cruise, like I cruise a lot, but even if you cruise every 3 months, going on that Flow Rider for the first time in 3 months is still intimidating, because that water's flying at you. Probably just as fast as the air is flying up and pushing you up. Like, it's intimidating. And also you have people watching you, so you don't want to fail. And that's the biggest thing with the Flow Rider, because people will watch and it's embarrassing. Yeah. But, Michael, the last thing I'm really looking forward to is the fact that this is a Royal Caribbean cruise, and we're going to get to experience the things that we like about Royal, which is the schooner bar, the pub, the parties, and all the things that they have on board. I need to look at this app this week and start to plan out what I'm going to bring, if I'm going to bring any sort of themed outfits as well. But ultimately, we have a 7-night cruise coming up.
We do.
Starting in a week. So we're really looking forward to that. And we can't wait to tell you guys more when we get back.
Well, that's going to wrap up this week's episode of the Cruise Conversations podcast. We hope y'all are super excited to tag along as we sail on Quantum of the Seas. Make sure to follow us on Instagram. We'll probably be posting a lot of updates on that throughout the sailing. And then, like we said, make sure to check out our post-cruise recap afterwards. And then we'll eventually have vlogs on the way. We're super excited. So, yeah, like I said, follow us on social media. And as always, if you're ready to book your next cruise vacation, we'd love to help you with that booking process. Make sure to check out our website, cruiseconversationspodcast.com, or shoot us a text at 704-313-8556. We hope you have a great week, and we'll see you back here next Wednesday.